I will make something really clear. It's not for us, in terms of the public sector, to fund a new stadium for Manchester United. Well, I've been struggling to make sense of what I've seen this week. Something is really wrong here.
Andy Burnham, Mayor for Greater Manchester since 2017.
Being elected to represent it for the third time.
Andy has been a pivotal figure in shaping Manchester.
Because how do you, as you say, begin to comprehend an act as evil as that? We've never been like that. You know, and actually the vast majority of people aren't like that. But at the same time, we've got to call out the social media platforms, as I've just done. Mr. Musk needs to explain what he's done. We've always been better than that. Well, I've been struggling to make sense of what I've seen this week, because how do you, as you say, begin to comprehend an act as evil as that?
Welcome to the Bricks to Riches podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Andy Burnham, who's the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Andy's so popular, this is his third term as Mayor, and is loved by the public so much that some members of the public want him to be the next Prime Minister of England. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Andy, first of all, what's a typical day as the Mayor for you? What does your day involve being the Mayor of Greater Manchester?
It often starts with a run because it is a stressful job, and sometimes I just need to clear my head a little bit in the morning and work out the stuff that I've got ahead of me. Every day's different, and it's a great thing about this job, but it also makes it, you know, quite a draining job on every level. When I was in Westminster, I thought I'd be leaving to come and have a slightly quieter life, but it's never worked. It's never worked out like that. I mean, my day would involve a police meeting, a transport meeting, perhaps discussing fire or housing. There'll be a whole range of things, as well as some media things like this. An evening reception. You know, it's full on, but I love it.
Is it 7 days a week, or are you on call 24 hours a day? How does it work?
No, it is 7 days a week, so there's never a day that I don't end up doing a significant amount of work stuff. And you could be called at any time of the day or night in relation to an issue that is unfolding. And you know, we live in times when a lot happens and you can't sort of predict when it will happen. But I don't say that to sort of seek sympathy in any way. You know, it's a wonderful privilege to do the job that I do. In my view, this is the best city region in the world. Why? There's lots of things I could say, but the people of this place make it what it is. It's a privilege to lead this city region. So as hard as it can be at times, I love this job. It's the best job I've ever had in my life, and I wouldn't swap it actually for Westminster or anything.
I can see you're very passionate. You've been a Mayor of Greater Manchester for this is your third term. You started in 2017, and me being a property developer, I've seen the skyline change under your supervision. And you've done a remarkable job, and may it continue from strength to strength. Now, Andy, what I want to ask you, first of all, about housing, because my expertise is housing. I've been a property developer for the last 30 years. What do you think of the housing shortage in Manchester at the moment? How do you intend to tackle it to provide more housing to the people of Manchester?
Well, I think we need to make housing, if you like, the new number one in terms of a priority. Obviously, in my time as Mayor, I've had to get my hands on transport, and we have a plan for transport. The B network is coming through now. That will be an integrated public transport system, similar to what people have in London. So that fundamental, which is a fundamental, I wouldn't say it's fixed yet, but we're on to fixing it. So now, as I've come into my third term, housing has moved to number one, because the housing market in Greater Manchester isn't where it should be. As you say, there's a lot of new housing, but it's not necessarily always affordable to people. So I've asked this organisation, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, to adopt a housing first philosophy. That means make sure every resident of Greater Manchester can have a good, safe home. And if we're to do that, it means some quite profound changes in the way we think about housing, building more council homes again, intervening to secure housing standards. So we're bringing in, I'm not sure if this is good news for you, but we're bringing in a Greater Manchester Good Landlord Charter, similar to our Good Employment Charter. We've just got to get tougher, I think, about making sure homes are a good enough standard for everybody across the city region. So there's a big change in thinking coming through about housing in Greater Manchester.
One point I'd like to say as a developer, Andy, when I do big developments, and one thing I'll say, the planning application is quite tedious and long. If you make a normal planning application on the website, it'll say like 12 weeks to 6 months, but some planning applications take 2-3 years. If we could catalyse that process, that'll supply a lot more housing. How would you ease the planning process? I know that for office buildings, the planning's been relaxed to PDR schemes, but I'm talking about new build, so that supply chain can get easier for the end user.
Yeah.
That'll increase the supply. What's your view on the planning policy?
Well, obviously we have a new government in place, and they've put planning reform pretty much at the top of the agenda, because they have a plan to substantially increase the number of homes we're building every year, not just here in Greater Manchester, but nationally. And there's been announcements this very week about planning reform. So I do think we need to cut the time that it takes, and that's a whole range of things that would need to be done to streamline that.
I hope so. That'll help bring the supply chain quicker, so that'll bring the housing quicker.
Yeah.
But also, what about affordability, Andy? Because a lot of people, when I speak to young families, young couples, they can't afford the rents. It's because of lack of housing. The rents have gone higher. And also, the other issue is people don't have that sort of deposit. So, for example, if you're going to go and buy a 100 grand house, 200 grand house, you need at least 20,000, 30,000 pounds deposit. So people, it's very difficult, even though some lenders say they'll lend 95% of cost, and there's government schemes that help you with the deposit. It's hard for people to actually crystallise that process. What's your view on that, affordability?
Well, I think we've got to get back to true affordability, and to me that starts with building more council homes and social homes, because you won't fix the housing crisis without doing that. You can then do further things around requiring affordable homes within the planning system. You can reform finance and access to finance. So all of those things have got a role to play. But I don't think you can fix the housing crisis without building more truly affordable homes. And those would be social homes, or what I want to see, a new generation of council homes in Greater Manchester. Because you've got to think about housing not just in terms of the cost of buying it or renting it. You've also got to think about the cost of running it. So if we're going to build a new generation of council homes, they can be built to a standard that is net zero or close to it. And often those homes can have much lower bills from an energy point of view than traditionally built homes. And that's when I think things get interesting, because then your rent, even if your rent is high, your bills could be much lower, and that makes the whole thing affordable. So when we think about the affordability of housing, I think it's really more and more important to think about the costs of running your home and paying your bills.
Sustainability, to make sure you can afford the bills.
Yeah. You bring the cost of energy down, basically, or you create homes that don't need as much energy consumption.
And what about doing council housing? There's people complaining constantly that they're on the waiting list of the council to get into a house. How would you expect to expedite that process?
Well, I've said in this mayoral term, I want to build, working with our councils, at least 10,000 homes for social rent or council homes, 1,000 in each of the Greater Manchester boroughs at least. And obviously what we've now got is a government at national level which is talking the same language. So I'd like to do more, but that's a realistic number that I think we can do. Where will those homes go? I've established a land commission in Greater Manchester. So this is a body of all the biggest landowners in the city region, and many of them are Whitehall government departments, Network Rail, or the prison service, the NHS. And what we're trying to do now is free up publicly owned land to build those 10,000 homes, and possibly go even further than that. So there are some big changes coming through on housing in Greater Manchester, and as I say, it's taken a while for it to become our number one issue, but it now is our number one issue.
Well, I wish you good luck with that.
Thank you.
Also, Andy, going to homelessness in Manchester, like whenever I walk around the streets of city centre, my office is in Universal Square, and sometimes from Hale I get the tram and I walk through the city, and there's loads of homeless people there that I go and help out. And me being of Muslim origin, in Ramadan I go to homeless centres and feed people, and it's very sad that we're in the Western world and there's so much homelessness. How do you intend to deal with the homelessness?
I think if you go to any city in the world, sadly, there is a homelessness problem, and it's partly an issue of bricks and mortar, but it's more an issue of people who perhaps suffered trauma in their life and have then developed addiction as a result of that, and have struggled to find a sustainable life. I think you've got to have an approach which is what we call housing first. The temporary help we might give people in terms of some support with food here or some other help there. It's got to be about giving people a home and ongoing support to be able to rebuild their lives. So we have had a housing first program here where people have been given homes plus support, and the vast majority of people have sustained their tenancies and have gone on to move forward towards work. So you have to take a long-term approach. I do run a scheme called A Bed Every Night, which provides 600 single rooms every night. So this is a first step for people away from the street. It's not just a bed every night, it's the same bed every night. Once people go into our scheme, they can stay where they are, begin to get settled, and then you need to move them on to those more longer term arrangements. So it's about a journey away from the street. The short term respite is good, but it's not a solution. And what we have now is a solution. We've not been able to fund all the places we want because the last government wouldn't give us the funding to do that. We're hoping now to work with Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, who's establishing an ending homelessness unit at the heart of Downing Street. We're hoping to work with Angela to say, look, the GM approach works, we just need more of it.
And private developers like myself, they could help as well with homelessness. We've talked in the past about developing a homeless shelter. We looked at a few places like in Ardwick near our office. So even all the successful property developers they could help the homelessness as well.
Well, I'm always conscious of just how good the property sector has been in Greater Manchester. When I first put the call out for help on homelessness, so many property developers in the city region stepped forward, like yourselves. Tim Heatley of Capital and Centric, who chairs the Greater Manchester Mayor's charity, which focuses on homelessness. There's been no shortage of offers of help. We've just got to work harder now, haven't we, to turn them into reality.
The plan's in place, it just has to be executed now, doesn't it?
Correct.
Another point, Andy, is Manchester United football stadium. I understand they're going to have a new stadium and the public purse might be used to develop the stadium. How do you feel about that? Because some of the football supporters might disagree with that. Some people are very patriotic towards football. What's your view on that?
Well, the first thing I would say on that is Manchester United is massive in terms of brand recognition around the world. It's whether people support them or not, we've all got to recognise
it's a huge brand.
The power of the club and the name of the club is a massive asset for Greater Manchester. Yes. I will make something really clear. It's not for us in terms of the public sector to fund a new stadium for Manchester United, and that point needs to be made really clear. What we can do, though, is provide some of the enabling works around transport or other things that help unlock the potential of Manchester United to rebuild or refurbish Old Trafford, whichever is their preference. I think the knock-on opportunity in terms of regeneration jobs is huge. If you think of what City have created on the east
side of Manchester,
on the east side of Manchester, it's just, to anybody who grew up here, like you, like me, it's East Manchester is unrecognisable from what it was years ago. And actually now, if you think about this city with something similar on the west, a football campus with all of the regeneration around it, close to Media City and the Trafford Centre and all of that, it really balances the city region and sets up the place. These are our two biggest brands, aren't they? These are known the world over, both of them. And I think we will be unlocking the full power of Greater Manchester, not just as a football city, but as a sort of a business city going forward.
As an enterprise centre.
For sure, and that's why I think it's important that we do what we can to enable the club to be able to move forward. I think we are close to being the football capital of the world. You could argue that we already are, because there's only one other city in Europe that has two Champions League winners, and that's Milan. So even Madrid has not had two Champions League winners. Manchester and Milan are the only two. But if you look at the kind of size of our football infrastructure, then the names, the players we have, we are operating at a higher level than Milan, and I would say the vast majority of other cities around the world. But if we set the two clubs up now properly for the 21st century, it's an opportunity for Manchester to really dominate that space going forward. So, if you're a United fan or not, even if you're a City fan, I think people will be able to see the kind of the benefit of setting up the regeneration of Old Trafford for the future.
The balance sheet value of both clubs will be phenomenal. Manchester City, Manchester United, and the job creation will be great for Manchester generally. And the tourists coming to Manchester will hopefully bring more capital into the city. What do you think?
Well, that happens. You can see that already. The number of visitors we get during the football season is huge. People want to come here. They want to go to both grounds. Actually, overseas tourists want to come here just to see the football infrastructure that we've got. And it feels to me that after a kind of, let's say, a decade or two when Man United have sort of stood still or often maybe even gone backwards, they are now finally, it feels like there's a new energy around Old Trafford. Obviously, Eric has won a couple of trophies, and that always helps. But no, I think there's really interesting potential around what United are wanting to do. But then you look at the Etihad and you look at Co-op Live next door, and you look at what Pep has built and what Khaldoon and others involved there have built. It's incredible, isn't it? But the power of it is going to be multiplied many levels if you've got the same on the west of the city region.
I'm proud to be a Mancunian. I was born here, Manchester. I've seen the city grow from strength to strength, and hopefully under your leadership it'll get even bigger and better. And
that's the plan.
Now, Andy, also growing up, London used to be the number one city in England, then Birmingham, then Manchester. I feel that Manchester's now number two, and I think that HS2, if that came to Manchester, that would have catapulted Manchester a lot higher, because the access from London to Manchester, you could have got here within an hour. You could be working in London every day. You could go to central London at 8 a.m. and come back the same day. But now HS2, that's obviously not happening. Secondly, the property values, if that happened, HS2, the property values in Manchester region would have shot up by at least 30-40% because of the accessibility. What do you think of HS2 not happening?
Well, you will have seen last year when the former Prime Minister just came here for his conference and scrapped it without even talking to us, how much disappointment that caused, not just in this office, but around the whole of the city region and amongst the property community, but everybody, because everybody knows right now the trains are nowhere near good enough. We
constantly
all know.
Delayed. I'm in London every week, always delayed.
I mean, let's be honest, Avanti West Coast have been appalling.
Yes.
They don't deserve to continue to run that service. The quicker they're removed, the better. As far as I'm concerned, they've let Manchester down. They've damaged our economy because they've kind of created a situation where people just don't know whether they can risk coming here. We just cannot have that. And we gave them plenty of warnings, plenty of chances, and they haven't taken any of that anything like seriously enough. So we need change on the railways, both in terms of the operations of the railways now, but then also a plan for that infrastructure. So I am working currently with the Mayor of the Liverpool City region on a new line between Liverpool and Manchester. Ironically, it's almost 200 years after the very first railway line in the world, intercity, was built. But we are saying to the incoming government, there's going to have to be an alternative to HS2. You can't just leave it as it is. You can't just say, the West Coast Main Line in its current form is good enough for the future. It isn't good enough for the future. The National Audit Office reported recently that it will be close to being full very soon. So I am saying to the incoming government, we're going to build that new line between Liverpool and Manchester, and then that will carry on over the Pennines with Trans-Pennine upgrade. But you're still going to have to connect that new infrastructure with HS2 north of Birmingham if this whole system is to hang together.
Because if it's not connected, Andy, that's a lot of waste of time and energy, because all those properties are CPO properties that are bought just to support the HS2. Those properties are sat there on the government balance sheet.
Well, that's what the National Audit Office reported on. They've spent £500 million on those properties. And if they now did a fire sale of all of that, in 10 years' time, they'd have to come back and look at this issue again, because, as I say, the West Coast Main Line is not going to be set up to deal with our 21st century needs. But more than that, we've still got the ambition for an underground station at Manchester Piccadilly, a modern station that preserves the land around it for economic development. Manchester's hit a point now in its growth whereby you have to go underground. You can't build everything on the surface. So we're making those arguments. I'll keep working at those arguments.
Please do.
I've got a government now, hopefully, that will understand and trust in what we're trying to do. So I think we can come back at this and arguably come up with a better plan than the HS2 plan.
Because if you have an express train, like a bullet train like the ones in Japan, if you have that in Manchester to London, the economy will just get stronger and better. The property values will go up as well.
Yeah, we're interestingly going to Japan next year. I don't know if people who follow the podcast know this, but Osaka, Japan, is known as the Manchester of the East.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they were the big industrial centre compared to Tokyo, the financial centre in the past. But in the old days, lots of people from there came here to look at the machinery in the mills, and they took a lot of that technology back to Osaka, and they became known as the Manchester of the East. So next year, 2025, Osaka is World Expo, and we've made a partnership with them so that we can tell the story of Manchester and Osaka next year. As part of doing all of this work, to get to what the reason why I thought of that is, I travelled on the bullet train not long ago between Osaka and Tokyo.
I bet it's a great experience for you, Andy.
Well, it wasn't. It was bittersweet because literally it was December last year and Rishi Sunak had just cancelled HS2.
No.
So you remember that old programme, Bullseye? Do you remember Bullseye on ITV, Jim Bowen? He used to say to people when they'd kind of got the question wrong at the end, come and have a look at what you would have won. Do you remember that? And so for me, looking at the bullet train in Osaka, as I kind of was about to get on it.
Salt on the wounds.
It was salt on the wounds. It was like, come and have a look at what you could have had with HS2. But
and the
anyway.
And the hygiene on the train, everything's phenomenal.
It's
amazing.
amazing.
West Coast, the train's dirty.
The speed with it, they just run it there, then they turn it around and they clean it and it's back. It's absolutely amazing. And for the country like ours that gave railways to the world, as I said before, the first intercity rail service in the world in 1829 between Liverpool and Manchester, the fact that we now just can't run something as simple as a railway is actually an embarrassment to this country. But we're on with this now. We've really got the bit between our teeth. The new government is saying now it's going to reverse privatisation, which I think is the right thing to do when it comes to the railways. We're going to build a new line between Liverpool and Manchester. We need to regain our reputation for being a railway nation, learning from our friends in Japan.
Well, I wish you good luck. If it happens and you make the same Japanese model in England, I just see England going from strength to strength.
I think you're right.
And also, Andy, going to some recent events that have happened recently. First of all, sadly, the incident in Southport, where those young children were sadly killed by that murderer. That's really, really tragic, and I feel very sad for the families. And what's happened as a consequence of that, in Southport and the mosque and everything, what's your view on that?
Well, I've been struggling to make sense of what I've seen this week, because how do you, as you say, begin to comprehend an act as evil as that?
You have to be mentally unwell to do something like that.
Honestly, it's just beyond comprehension, isn't it? To go to a summer group, a Taylor Swift group class. I mean,
and young innocent children. It's shocking, disgusting.
There's just nothing that even begins you to get your head around it, and to do it as seemingly premeditated or whatever. It's hard to even get a handle on it. But then equally, it's hard to understand how then a kind of hate mob on social media whip people up to such a degree that they start attacking a mosque. The mosque didn't have anything to do with it.
And the chap wasn't even Muslim, he was Christian.
I mean, it's. I don't know if if that's been confirmed yet, but it's just a kind of a sad reflection on the times that we're living in. I guess the positive was that people turned up and helped the gentleman who runs the mosque to rebuild the wall and to clean up outside. And I think we still live in
I think Manchester's a very cosmopolitan community, and people help generally anybody in distress, irrespective of colour, religion, background. That's the majority of the people.
We saw that, didn't we, after the arena bomb all those years ago, and I think it's true of people across the Northwest. The vast majority of people here are completely decent, good people who look out for each other, and they refuse to be divided by some of the people that are constantly peddling this hate. I worry about social media though. I look at X and I just see constant hard right content being sort of fed out, and
those are extremists though, aren't they? They're extremists, and people who twist and manipulate.
Well, yes, but before you get to them, what about this platform? Something has happened here where the kind of algorithms have been changed so that this content is being really thrown at people all of the time, and it's kind of constantly ratcheting up the kind of the feeling, and it's
promoting hate. That's what
something is really wrong here in terms of the way this is organised. And Mr. Musk needs to needs to come over and explain what he's done. I was on Twitter before, now I'm on X, and I just see the change, and he's done something to it. And to be honest, he's made it a tool of propaganda for the hard right, and he needs to answer as to why he's done that and what he's going to do to change it back.
I agree, but as the Mayor of Manchester, Andy, how do you protect the children of Greater Manchester, and how do you prevent ignorant people promoting hate? What structures, what measures can you put in place to help the public?
Well, I think the thing that we've always done is what we continue to do, which is you promote interfaith working across the city region, and we take that really seriously. We take an approach where, we work hard to involve all communities in what we do. We try and send out a message of hope to all of our young people. We support them with free travel, and we're bringing through a big reform to our education system soon called the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate, the MBAC. What is that? It's going to be an equal alternative to the university route, so that kids growing up can see a path for them into the success story that is Greater Manchester today. Because at the end of the day, that's the best antidote to all of this, isn't it? Let everyone grow up with a path in life, with hope, seeing life from all sides as they go into the world of work and meeting people from different faiths and different backgrounds. Greater Manchester has always done that really well, and I hope that never changes. It really saddened me to see on the back of the Southport situation, people turning up to kind of throw stones and bottles outside a hotel, and stones and bottles at the police as well. I mean, we've never been like that. And actually the vast majority of people aren't like that. We've always been better than that.
So some people are scared of leaving the house. They think there might be a riot. Some people are scared of going to the mosque because of all this that's going on. So it's a sad state of affairs.
It is a sad state of affairs, and governments of all colours going back have got to take some responsibility, because I think in too many parts of the country people have been left without that hope that I was talking about a moment ago. They don't see in their community things moving forward, and that has to change, and government has to sort of grip that and do something. But at the same time, we've got to call out the social media platforms, as I've just done, but also those who are seeking to use any situation to immediately kind of promote their often quite warped political agenda. So 3 girls dying in Southport. We should have been focusing on them, their parents, their families.
Getting them support.
Those in the hospitals that were still fighting for. Instead, what you just saw was this raging sort of...
Reaction. They should have responded rather than reacting.
It's just not right, and we've never been like that. And I don't think this country is changing, because I don't think the vast majority of people do think like that. But we've got to be aware now to the kind of the dangers that we face. There's a kind of a drive, not just here, but in America and around the world. There's this polarization that people are feeding all of the time, and I think politicians now need to step up and confront this more directly. But part of that is about giving all people in all places hope, a sense of fairness, that things are being done properly, and to be honest, dealing with some of the concerns about immigration. If there are concerns, they need to be dealt with, and that's the way most people, I think, if they see that response, then most people will say, well, they'll go with the democratic structures and the elected government. I think the risk is you end up with the levels of polarization that they have in the US. I hope and pray that never comes to the UK, but you can't be complacent about it.
You made a good point about Interfaith, Andy. I've been following you for some years. The Interfaith events at British Muslim Heritage Centre, I met you there last time with King Charles, so I don't really remember. So you always attend the Interfaith events, you're always supportive of different communities. I think that's very important for the whole of Greater Manchester to be cosmopolitan, to be united. So you're leading from the front, you're a great ambassador, so I commend that.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's nice of you to say that. I mean, but I do invest a lot of time in that. I think this city region has been built on that tradition of unity between different peoples. It's gone back a long time. It's not a new thing. It goes back a long way. And it was fantastic, actually, to work with Manchester Cathedral on a multi-faith visit to Rome last year. We went to Rome to see Pope Francis, and we did a picture in St. Peter's Square, quite an iconic picture, I would say, of all the different faiths, all the different communities lined up together, and powerful image. But that's us. That's how we've always been, and long may that remain the case.
Definitely. Well done. And one other point now, Andy, is relating to the Manchester Airport incident. I saw your article in the Manchester Evening News, your response to it all. I thought it was a wonderful response. But me being a layperson, how do you prevent people like policemen abusing the power? For me, watching that video, I saw obviously that policewoman's nose got broken. That's very sad. But when the police officer had that gentleman on the floor handcuffed, then there's no need for the abuse of power. I think he got emotional, kicked the guy in the head who's already in a safe position. So what's your opinion about abuse of power, like policemen?
I think what I would say is you've got to face up fully to events when they happen. And I said in response to that the kind of first clip that appeared on social media didn't actually tell the whole story.
No, it didn't.
It was a more complicated situation with issues on both sides. And the truth of the matter is now you've got to deal fully with the consequences of it, not in a one-sided way, but in a comprehensive way. So where we are now, there is a criminal investigation into some of the violence, but there is also an investigation into police conduct as well. So you've got to have balance in this life, haven't you? The thing is, sometimes people see things on social media now and they want to say it's all this thing or it's all that thing, and they don't want to kind of accept that life is often more complicated than that. It's kind of the truth lies somewhere in between. And there is actually a problem here for the public authorities, which is they often are quite reticent when it comes to putting out video. Obviously the public will put out video of something, but the public authorities say, well, we better not do that because it might prejudice a trial later down the line.
Of course.
I think in the world we're living in, I think it's going to be more beneficial for people if all sides have put out, we're just in a world now, aren't we, where...
For transparency.
Yeah, I think so. I am going to be making this argument to the Home Secretary and the Justice Secretary. I just think we've got to let people see all sides of something. It's quite dangerous, actually, to leave only a bit of the story out there. It's much better to tell the whole story, and, that's the world we're now in, aren't we? We're in a world of instant video and images. And I just think, the public authorities now have to move at the same speed. Otherwise, people end up getting the wrong impression, or there's misleading claims are made. And it's about just dealing things with properly, fairly in the round and being seen to do that. When that image first appeared, I did look at the full footage, and I did say to people, look, this isn't as clear cut as people think it is. There's two sides to this. People need to sort of step back and not rush to judgment. So, in the end, I think that was borne out by the video, the full video that emerged. But now it's not about prejudging anything. Just let the two investigations that are ongoing do their work.
For me, obviously, I'm a Mancunian. I love Manchester. I got that video sent to me from various different people around the world, from Dubai, from Pakistan, India, and people said, oh, that's happening in your hometown, are you okay? So I'm fine. And so that's an isolated incident. So it doesn't give Manchester a good image, because obviously Manchester, that doesn't really happen. Like if that happened in Dubai, they squash all the media, you can't release it. Yeah. Over here, so some people get scared to come to Manchester. It's rough, it's scary. When I live in Manchester, I don't think it's rough and scary, but some people get intimidated travelling from abroad.
Yeah, but I think the truth is, you can see images from all countries now, can't you? You pretty much all.
The world's on your fingertips.
Yeah, it's a challenge in terms of the world that we're living in, but I just think we've got to get better at providing the context, explaining it, as you say, making people understand that it's isolated, because it is isolated. You know, this is not an image I've ever had to deal with since I became mayor. I think, you know, by and large, Greater Manchester is becoming a more successful place. I think the statistics would tell you it's becoming slowly, not as quickly as I would like, but it's becoming a safer place. GMP are doing a better job. There's loads to be proud of here. You know, this is a city region that's on the up. You know, we're not perfect, but we wouldn't claim to be, would we? No city is. But I'm confident things here are moving in the right direction. And I also feel now, with the government that we've got, the plans that we've got, the best decade for Greater Manchester lies directly ahead of us.
I totally agree. Manchester's brilliant. It's been great for me, my family, in the business world. I went to school here, went to university here. It's going to be a great opportunity. It's going to be wealth. It's going to be success. I love Manchester. I can't thank it enough.
Well, it's great to finish hearing you say that. But I would just say, long may it be like that. Its success is built on the fact that it is a place where people look out for each other, where people are warm, people are welcoming, people of all faiths, none pull together, work together. That's the secret of our success, and long, forever, hopefully, may that be the case.
Andy, I must thank you for your time. I know you're very busy.
You're welcome.
And you were in London yesterday, and today you made time for the podcast. I really appreciate you giving your valuable time.
No problem at all.
And I wish you all the best in your next term as mayor, and I hope it goes from strength to strength.
Thank you very much.